The status of next weekend's WWE Night of Champions PLE in Saudi Arabia is reportedly up in the air following escalations of tensions between the USA and Iran last night. Kota Ibushi returns to AEW programming, returning last night on Collision. Ibushi has also been announced for this Wednesday's edition of AEW Dynamite. Stone Cold Steve Austin has reportedly told those close to him he might have one more match left in him. A casino gauntlet match is confirmed for AEW All in Texas. Timeless Tony Storm has some words for Mercedes Moné last night on Collision. Could Chris Statlander become the latest name to join the Death Riders? Hologram joins the Conglomeration on Collision. More details on LA Knight possibly moving to Monday Night Raw. CM Punk and Seth Rollins go face-to-face at Fanatics Fest. Noam Dar is injured, and he has been stripped of the NXT Heritage Cup. We also have an injury update on Harley Cameron after having no surgery. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Before we begin, you can see right there, we're getting closer and closer to 23,000 on that road to 25k in 2025. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Join the ever-expanding WNU, that being the Wrestling News universe. In addition, you can scan that QR code right there on the sidebar and join members of the WN365 roster. You get your badges, your emojis, and your exclusive members-only content. Now let's begin with developments regarding concern on if WWE Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia next Saturday is going to be going ahead. Now, obviously, this is not a political channel, but political developments have caused those to question if it's even safe to travel to Saudi for the event next weekend in Riyadh. Now, of course, in the news you may have seen that Donald Trump has said over the last evening that the US have struck 3 nuclear sites in Iran, joining Israel's attacks on the country and drawing America into another conflict in the Middle East. Now, the president said US planes dropped bombs in an effort to disable Iran's nuclear enrichment capability and set back its alleged pursuit of an atomic weapon. Now, people are now discussing what the response to this is going to be. Iran's foreign minister on Sunday said that Tehran reserves all options to defend its sovereignty and people after the, quote, outrageous, end quote, US attacks on 3 major nuclear enrichment facilities in the Middle Eastern country. Now, how does this affect WWE and Night of Champions, you may ask? Well, on Iranian state television, they have said, quote, every American citizen or military personnel in the region is now a target, end quote. Now, of course, in the region, a neighboring country is Saudi Arabia, which, of course, is where WWE is going to be hosting Night of Champions next Saturday in Riyadh. WWE will be traveling to Saudi this week. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful has reached out to WWE and said the following, quote, I've asked WWE in an official capacity if the Iran strikes will cause any adjustment to their WWE Night of Champions plans in Saudi Arabia. I've not heard back. I'll let you know if that changes. Of course, this is a developing story. We don't have all of the information right now, and there still is plenty of time to go between now and next Saturday, of course, when WWE is scheduled to be in Riyadh and actually have the Night of Champions PLE. Of course, we get any more developments on this, and the status of Night of Champions, we'll let you know in a future upcoming video. Kota Ibushi, he's back in AEW, returning last night. Kota Ibushi made his return to AEW television on the June 21st episode of AEW Collision, joining up alongside Mark Briscoe as friends of Kenny Omega against the Don Callis family. Ibushi headed to the ring and took out Josh Alexander before getting the better of Kazuchika Okada in a striking exchange. Of course, Omega is set to face Okada at AEW All In to crown the first ever AEW Unified Champion. But it won't be the only appearance on AEW programming for Ibushi in the coming days, because he's also been announced for AEW Dynamite. AEW have announced that Kota Ibushi will be a part of the June 25th episode of AEW Dynamite on TBS. As I mentioned, he has now confronted the Don Callis family and seemingly aligned himself with Mark Briscoe as friends of Kenny Omega. Stone Cold Steve Austin, could he have one more match left in him? Well, according to the Texas Rattlesnake, he apparently thinks so. Now, we may not have seen the last of Stone Cold Steve Austin inside of a squared circle for WWE. Austin, of course, famously effectively retired from professional wrestling in 2003 and didn't have another match for 19 years. Austin came out of retirement to face Kevin Owens in the main event of WrestleMania in 2022, that being WrestleMania 38, that being WrestleMania 38 Saturday. Since then, Austin hasn't necessarily closed the door on a return to the ring, but hasn't been eager to jump in the ring either. Fightful Select reported that he was actually approached about wrestling Roman Reigns for WrestleMania in 2023, but it didn't end up happening, but maybe something else will. Fightful Select are reporting they heard word from around WrestleMania weekend that Austin had intimated that he might not be quite just finished yet. More than one source around the weekend claimed that Austin told them, quote, he might have one more left in him, presuming a match and not an ATV ride, of course, when he crashed into the barricade. Now, Fightful say they haven't heard how he was feeling after WrestleMania, but multiple people that saw him that weekend claimed he was at least open to the idea under the right circumstances. Now, Austin has claimed that TKO hadn't reached out to him since taking over, but then he made a WrestleMania appearance, so that would suggest that TKO have reached out to him. A number of wrestlers have approached management about facing Stone Cold Steve Austin in recent years. Naturally, CM Punk was a name that has been tossed around internally quite a bit. So Austin could be set for a return match. We'll let you know if there's any developments on that in the future. The Casino Gauntlet match is returning at AEW All in Texas. AEW All in Texas is just 3 weeks away at the time recording, and the show just got even bigger thanks to the addition of a fan favourite match stipulation, the Casino Gauntlet match. Following the main event of the June 21st episode of AEW Collision, where Red Velvet helped Athena, Thekla, Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford defeat Thunder Rosa, Anna Jay, Tay Mello and Queen Aminata, Tony Schiavone announced the breaking news that the Casino Gauntlet match would be returning at All in Texas on July 12th. Given that the announcement came immediately after the All-Star Women's Tag Team match, some have already begun to speculate over whether it will be a men's or a women's match, but this has not yet been confirmed. The match joins the AEW Unification Championship match between Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada, the AEW Women's World Championship match between Timeless Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné, and the AEW World Championship match between Jon Moxley and Hangman Page. The Casino Gauntlet match debuted in April of 2024, where Will Ospreay earned himself a shot at the AEW International Champion Roderick Strong's title at the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. Fans immediately took to the match, and the second one, also won by Ospreay, took place 1 month later, before the third Casino Gauntlet match took place at the 2024 All in London pay-per-view at Wembley Stadium, which featured the in-ring return of Nigel McGuinness, the AEW debut of Ricochet, and Christian Cage emerging victorious. Now, speaking of Timeless Toni Storm, she had some words for her AEW All-In Texas challenger. Timeless Toni Storm addressed Mercedes Moné during the June 21st AEW Collision. She spoke about Mercedes winning the CMLL Women's World title and her record-breaking achievement of being the first woman to compete in all major arenas around the world, including Madison Square Garden and Arena Mexico. She stated that she doesn't want Mercedes to view her as just another champion to defeat. She would go as far to tell Mercedes she's not some other motherfucker. If Mercedes makes only one wrong move, Storm claims she will eat her alive. She asserts they will go on to have the best women's match of all time, and she truly believes Mercedes to be the GOAT, but she will have to kill her to defeat her and take the championship from her. Jon Moxley, maybe he's recruiting more members of the Death Riders. Jon Moxley had a message for Chris Statlander on the June 21st AEW Collision. Chris Statlander has endured weeks of turmoil on screen in AEW. She's tried to rekindle her friendship with Willow Nightingale. Wheeler Yuta, another former friend of hers, has been in her ear telling her to leave Willow behind. And on June 21st, she'd had enough. When Yuta approached her again, she shoved him out the way, but when she turned around to leave, she was greeted by AEW World Champion Jon Moxley. Moxley kept his message short: don't ever let anybody tell you who you are or what you're worth. Chris Statlander, flustered by the wave of emotions that she had just let out in the previous 80 seconds, stayed silent as Moxley walked away. Moxley had defeated AR Fox in the opening match of the show and then addressed his upcoming AEW World Championship defense against Hangman Page, saying that he was sick of Hangman and planned to run him out of wrestling at AEW All in Texas. Hologram, he's joined the Conglomeration. Ahead of the June 21st AEW Saturday Collision, Mark Briscoe announced that Hologram would be added to the Conglomeration and team that night with him and Willow Nightingale against Mace, Mansoor and Taya Valkyrie. Hologram, for his efforts, would help secure his new faction a victory, which would be capped off by Mark Briscoe nailing Mansoor with a froggy bow. The Conglomeration over time has included Briscoe, Nightingale, Orange Cassidy, Tomohiro Ishii, Kyle O'Reilly, and even Baby J Briscoe, but holographic conglomerations, that seemingly is the wave of the future. Now let's go over to WWE and talk about LA Knight possibly joining Monday Night Raw. LA Knight has been a SmackDown superstar ever since his main roster call-up in 2022, and despite some cameos here and there on Monday Night Raw, he has mostly been confined to the blue brand. This last month has seen more of a move from Knight to appear on Raw, feuding with the likes of Seth Rollins, Big Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker, who are the top heel act on the show. It was noted over the last week that there were those in WWE pushing to have him drafted over to the Raw brand in the near future, with the thinking being that he'd be a refreshing face to have featured on Netflix. On this, Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter noted that despite Knight perhaps appearing on Raw more often due to his program of Paul Heyman's group, due to the brand splits not being as strict as it previously was, there is no current plan to move Knight to Raw permanently. On SmackDown this week, Knight was on the receiving end of a massive beatdown from both Breakker and Reed, continuing the aforementioned storyline. Now, Fanatics Fest has been an event going on over this weekend. There's a lot of WWE influence on it. Seth Rollins and CM Punk's hatred cannot be contained by the ropes of a WWE ring. On the second day of New York City's weekend-long Fanatics Fest activities, CM Punk confronted his longtime enemy, and fans watched as security jumped in between the two men in a heated confrontation. WWE took over Fanatic Fest Saturday, with fans flocking to the event's catwalk with the hopes of seeing John Cena make his appearance as the never-seen 17. As the WWE champion made his entrance, however, Seth Rollins' music hit, and the Visionary leisurely pranced around the champion. Rollins confronted Cena with his signature cackles and new Money in the Bank briefcase. Cena offered no emotional response to Rollins and merely turned around to walk to the back. Rollins relished in the attention before Punk, clad in a plaid grey suit, appeared from the crowd to confront his rival. Fan coverage of the event was not able to capture what the two men were saying, but CM Punk and Seth Rollins seemed irate as they shouted at each other on the Fanatics catwalk. Rollins made contact with Punk's fist, shoving the best in the world before holding up his Money in the Bank briefcase. Punk did not take long to respond, giving Rollins a shove of his own before security officials sprung in to separate the two. As New York City shouted CM Punk's name, Rollins shouted at his rival before waving him off. Punk remained on the entrance catwalk as Rollins walked back through the curtain. Of course, Rollins and Punk are notorious enemies, with many speculating that their in-ring animosities are founded by out-of-the-ring differences. Punk, of course, is set to face Cena for the undisputed WWE Championship at the upcoming Night of Champions PLE. Noam Dar is injured and the Heritage Cup is now vacant. Noam Dar looked to have his career back on track following his surprise return to WWE NXT in April after missing nearly a year of action due to a serious leg injury. He won the NXT Heritage Cup Championship from Lexis King, branched out on his own following the disbandment of Meta-4, and managed to reach the final of the most recent tournament to determine the number one contender for the men's WWE Speed Championship. However, the Scotsman has suffered another setback as he's gone down with another injury. On June 21st, NXT General Manager Ava took to X to announce that Dar had suffered a legitimate injury and will be vacating the NXT Heritage Cup Championship. As a result, Channing Stacks Lorenzo, who Dar was supposed to defend his crown against on the June 24th episode of NXT, will now face a new opponent that has not yet been named for the vacant championship this Tuesday. Dar is far and away the most successful NXT Heritage Cup champion in history, having held the trophy on 4 different occasions, with his first 3 reigns as the champion being the 3 longest in the Cup's lineage. The winner of Tuesday's match will hope they can reach the levels that Dar has as champion. Elsewhere on the show, Izzy Dame, Jada Parker, Jordan Grace and Lash Legend will compete in a fatal 4-way match to determine the number one contender for the NXT Women's Championship. Javon Evans will go one-on-one with Tavon Heights, where if Heights wins, he will be allowed to leave the No Quarter Catch crew, and Trick Williams will defend the TNA World Championship against Josh Briggs, with much more set to be added as NXT looks to build towards the Great American Bash Premium Live event on July 12th. And finally, a bit of an update here on Harley Cameron as she recovers from nose surgery. Harley Cameron has been off AEW television since suffering a nose injury on the May 28th episode of AEW Dynamite. On social media, Cameron showed off her post-surgery look. She wrote, quote, "Well, I can't see much right now, but revenge is starting to look really good." Cameron last wrestled on the May 28th episode of AEW Dynamite, teaming with Anna Jay against Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford in a no disqualification match. Fightful Select had previously reported, quote, "It's a legitimate injury, but she sustained it before the AEW Dynamite show. She wanted to work it into a storyline to explain her absence from the ring, and AEW was happy to make that work." Of course, we wish her the best in her recovery. But there you go, guys, the latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, as you can see right there. We're getting closer and closer to 23,000 50,000, the next stop on our road to 25k. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Join the ever-expanding WNU. Remember, the goal is 25k in 2025. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. In addition, you can join the WN365 roster. Links in the video description below. You can click the join button or scan the QR code when it appears on the sidebar. Speaking of the sidebar, you can see all upcoming live streams we've got here on the channel. That includes a Night of Champions watch-along and post-show coming up next Saturday. Of course, if that changes regarding on the event status, we'll let you know in an upcoming video. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. More content on the way, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.